Your lungs burn, like someone poured molten lead down your throat. The heat under your heavy chainmail hauberk is a physical weight, a suffocating embrace of iron, salt, and stale sweat. You swing your broadsword in a desperate arc, the vibration of steel meeting bone, rattling through your arm and settling in your teeth. Your vision is tunneled, framed by the narrow slit of your great helm, a world of sun-bleached stone and crimson sprays. The air is thick with the copper tang of blood and the stench of unwashed bodies. You step over a fallen man, you don't know if he's a brother in arms or a Saracen, and press your shoulder into the wall of the house. You breathe. 1 second, 2 seconds. The screaming outside is a constant. This isn't the glorious pilgrimage the preachers promised back in Clermont. 4 years ago, in 1095, you stood in a cold field in France and listened to Pope Urban II speak of a land flowing with milk and honey, a holy land held by infidels. He promised you a plenary indulgence, a total erasure of your sins. You were a younger son with no land, a man of violence who had spent his youth raiding neighbors' cattle and burning peasant huts. The church called it the peace and truce of God, but you called it boredom. When the Pope offered you a way to kill without losing your soul, you took it. You sold your family's birthright, the output of an entire village for 5 years, just to afford your horse, your sword, and this suit of mail. You are a walking fortress of Frankish greed and holy fire, and right now you are starving. You remember the march through Anatolia, the Seljuk horse archers circling you like vultures, raining arrows that turned your infantry into pincushions. You remember the siege of Antioch in 1098. 8 months of hell. You ate your own horses. You watched your friends chew on boiled leather and grass until their teeth fell out. You survived when 3 out of 4 of your brothers didn't. You saw the Holy Lance pulled from the dirt, a piece of rusted iron that gave the army just enough madness to break the Turkish lines. Now it is July 15th, 1099. You have breached the walls of Jerusalem. You are inside the holy city, and the world has gone insane. You push off the wall and enter the main thoroughfare leading toward the Temple Mount. The sunlight is blinding. You see a group of knights, their white surcoats stained a dark, muddy purple, chasing a group of unarmed residents into an alley. You know what happens next. There is no mercy today. The order was clear. Purge the city. You see Godfrey of Bouillon in the distance, his face a mask of grim piety, leading the charge toward the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You hear the Latin chants of the priests rising above the sounds of the massacre, a discordant soundtrack to the end of the world. A shadow moves to your left. You spin, bringing your heater shield up just as a mace clatters against the wood. It's a defender, a man in robes with eyes full of... He's smaller than you, lighter, but he strikes with the strength of a man who has nothing left to lose. You parry his next blow, the metal ringing in your ears. He lunges. You drop your center of gravity, stepping inside his reach, and drive the pommel of your sword into his face. You hear the nasal bone crunch. He goes down, and you don't hesitate. You thrust the blade through the gaps in his leather armor. It's not like the songs. There's no music, just the heavy, wet thud of steel entering meat and the sudden, sickening heat of his blood. You stand over him, gasping for air. Your internal monologue is a frantic mess of prayers and curses. Is this... You remember the Great Schism of 1054? The rift between your church and the Greeks in Constantinople. You were supposed to be helping them after their disaster at Manzikert in 1071. But now, you're just a... You look at your hands. They are trembling. You have lost count. You reach the Temple Mount. It's the site where the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock stand. The scale of the slaughter here stops you in your tracks. The chronicles will later say the blood reached the horse's knees, and as you look across the plaza, the ground is slick, a literal lake of gore. Thousands have been herded here and put to the sword. The smell is an physical assault, a miasma of bowels and iron that makes you want to heave inside your helmet. You see a fellow knight, a man you shared a crust of moldy bread with, outside Antioch, laughing as he loots a golden candlestick from a dying woman. Suddenly, a woman and two small children scramble out, trying to reach the shadows of a side street. Behind them, 3 of your sergeants emerge, their swords drawn, their eyes bright with the fever of the sack. They aren't looking for infidels. They are looking for sport. You know these men. They are brutal. They see the woman's gold bangles. They see her fear. You have a split-second decision to make. You can turn away. You can go to the Holy Sepulchre and kneel in the dirt, claiming your prize of eternal salvation. You can join the sergeants and take your share of the loot. God knows you've earned it after the thousands of miles you've walked. Or you can step in the way. Stop, you croak, your voice dry and cracked. The sergeants don't hear you over the din. They are closing in. The woman is trapped against a stone archway, clutching the children to her chest. She looks at you, her eyes meeting yours through the slit of your helm. She doesn't see a holy warrior. She sees a monster in a metal skin. You find yourself moving before you can think. You step between the sergeants and the family. You raise your shield. The lead sergeant, a man named Renaud with a scar across his bridge, sneers at you. We didn't bleed for 3 years to leave the scraps for the Greeks. The city is taken, you say, your voice steadier now. The work is done. The work is never done, Renaud spits. He raises his sword. The 2 men behind him fanned out. They aren't knights, but they are 3. And you are tired. Your armor is heavy, your arm is leaden, and your soul feels like it's been dragged through the dust of the entire Sinai Peninsula. You feel the adrenaline spike again. This is the moral trap. You came here for God, but you stayed for the carnage. If you kill your own men to save these people, the Crusaders will hang you as a traitor. If you let it happen, you are just another butcher in a city of ghosts. The sun beats down on the Temple Mount. Renaud lunges, not at the woman, but at you. He's betting you won't strike a fellow Christian. He's wrong. You pivot, the years of training taking over. You catch his blade on your shield and lean into him, using your weight to shove him back. The other 2 sergeants hesitate, looking at your knightly status, then at the gold on the woman's wrists. Greed wins. They rush you from both sides. You drop your shield and grab your sword with both hands. It's a brutal, short fight. You cut the first man across the thighs, a shallow but agonizing wound that sends you spin, catching the second man's blade on the crossguard of your sword and kick him square in the chest. He falls back into a pile of corpses. Renaud is back. "You're a dead man," he screamed. They vanished into the labyrinth of the Jewish quarter while you were fighting. You stand your ground, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. Renaud looks at his 2 wounded companions, then at the cold, steady tip of your broadsword. He knows you're the better swordsman. He curses, spits on the ground, and motions for his men to follow him. They disappear. You walk toward the temple area, your boots squelching in the mud of human remains. You find a fountain where the water You take off your helmet and let it drop into the red water. The air hits your sweaty face, and for a moment, it feels like the coolest thing in the world. You look at your reflection in the stained water. You don't recognize the man looking back. The eyes are hollow, the skin stretched tight over the bone. Godfrey of Bouillon passes by with his retinue. He has refused the title of king, opting instead for Advocatus Sancti Sepulchri, the protector of the Holy Sepulchre. He looks at you, sees your bloody armor. He thinks you've been doing God's work. He thinks you've been participating in the greatest event since the creation of the world. You sit on the edge of the fountain and look out over the city you've liberated. Jerusalem is a graveyard. The air is starting to turn, As the thousands of bodies begin to rot in the afternoon heat, you have your indulgence, you have your status, you have your life. But as you look at your stained hands, you realize the price was higher than a few years of a village's output. You think of the siege of Antioch, the massacre at the temple, and the silence. You are a knight of the First Crusade. You have won the Holy Land, and you have never felt more lost. The sun begins to set over the Judean hills, casting long, dark shadows across the ruins. The screams have quieted into a low, rhythmic moaning. You pick up your helmet, the metal still warm from the sun. What would you have followed the orders of the church? Drop your answer in the comments. Subscribe for more POV scenarios.